painted previews.
Passive suicidal ideation is one of the most misunderstood mental health symptoms. Many mental health professionals, therapists, psychologists, and psychiatrists don't even know what this term means, even though it affects millions of people. If you are not familiar with this term, passive SI refers to a person who is, at minimum, experiencing mixed feelings about continuing to live and exist. They aren't necessarily excited to wake up tomorrow. On the more extreme end of passive SI, it can even involve someone who's actively wishing for death, or at least wishing that their suffering would end in some way or another. But it does not involve an action plan to do something to end one's own life. That would be active SI, which is not the focus of today's video. There are so many misunderstandings about what it means to live with passive SI, and I figure who better to clear up such misunderstandings than a clinical psychologist who specializes in severe depression and who has experienced passive SI. So these are the misconceptions about passive SI that I want to correct in the minds of as many people as possible. And the first is that passive SI is selfish. That's a misconception. Passive SI is not selfish, and more often than not, it is the exact opposite of selfish, meaning people with passive SI can be severely depressed and experiencing immense suffering. Often what stops them from crossing a line into active SI and keeps these thoughts more as a wish or desire rather than a thing they're going to actually try to do is the immense concern they have for how their passing would affect other people. Maybe they have people relying on them, maybe they just know people care about them or love them, so they're getting out and fighting what they feel like is a losing battle every single day because they care about you. I don't know that I can think of anything less selfish than a person living a life that they don't enjoy so other people around them do not suffer. That is about as selfless an act as I can conceive in my mind. So if you regard passive SI as selfish or self-centered, I'd strongly encourage you to reconsider that viewpoint. A similarly problematic viewpoint is the idea that passive SI is a result of weakness. We don't experience passive SI because we can't handle life or don't know how to cope. It's because, in most cases, we look forward at what we think is in our future and we don't see much. We don't see a lot coming up that seems worth sticking around for. Most of the people I speak with and work with who experience passive SI view it less as an emotional decision, less as an emotional equation, I guess I would say, and more like an impartial math problem. And I often hear people say something along the lines of, to keep going, like to continue existing, I have to give this much. For those of you on podcast, my hands are wide right now. And you're trying to get this much, a narrower amount. So I'm putting more into my life than I'm getting in return. It feels like a bad deal and I don't want to do it forever. Now, you might be a little disclaimer about this. That analysis is often impacted by symptoms of depression or other mental health conditions which can cause us to struggle to experience the good parts of our lives and can skew that equation negative. Regardless, that is often what it looks like to people. It is not because someone just has a life skills doesn't want to deal with stress. It's because it looks like about you. Passive SI is also not usually an impulsive reaction to situations. It looks that way to other people. And I think the biggest reason it looks that way to other people is we don't talk about it very often. It's a very taboo, shameful, secretive thing. So if you disclose passive SI to another person, they tend to think that like it started that day. That you just woke up one day and were like, screw this, I don't want to do life anymore. And you told them as soon as you started thinking that way. They don't realize you've been feeling that way for months or years or decades. And that's usually what it is. In most cases, it is a slow wearing down of a person. It is the net result, as it were, of a life that requires you to put more in than you get out. And it's more of the exhaustion that comes from fighting the same battles day in and day out and feeling like you're usually losing them. It's not typically just this dramatic reaction to like I had a hard day today, now I don't want to be alive anymore. Very, very rarely is that the case. Passive SI is also not necessarily a reflection of the quality of a person's life. Again, if you are to disclose passive SI to another person, often the first question you get is why, or what's wrong, what happened, or what event occurred to put this thought, put this feeling in your mind. And sometimes there's a reason, or a configuration of reasons anyway. There are some commonalities of passive SI: extreme poverty, chronic illness, uncontrolled stress, grief, trauma. All of these things can create a suffering so intense that a person just wishes to be done. But that's not always the case. Sometimes nothing is really wrong. Sometimes with passive SI, life just doesn't feel the way it seems like it should. Sometimes you, generally speaking, have all of the pieces in place, or at least most of the pieces, and the puzzle doesn't look right and you don't know why. And that can be more demoralizing than not having the pieces. Because if you feel like I did the things I was supposed to do, I have the life I wanted, and I still don't feel good, I'm still not happy, what is it going to take? And will I ever really have it? And the hopelessness that comes from achieving most of your goals and still feeling like you.
Back to school is back. Your Walmart must have these everything on the rescue. You tell me. With Fitness Shark, you cut the lunch line. Oh, no. Knowledge is power.
It's time for you to invest in yourself, and there's multiple ways.
I have a lot of friends on bars, couple soldier trains, and I'm sitting there wishing it was me. But I knew that sooner or later it would be me.
You're going to do something with your time. If you just make that choice to go to school, you can't do it, and you shouldn't wait.
The right time is right now. Southern New Hampshire University can help you take the next step to your future.
Need a minute? Take it. It's something cold, colorful, and made just for you. Walmart's refreshers, recharge energy drinks, and lemonades are ready when you are. Keep refreshing. You gotta have a Wawa.
Before doing it, though, is something that can really make a person question, why am I doing it before? So many people experience passive SI have very short lives, and they are typically aware of that. That's not the thing, people have time to pay attention to that. Oh, but you have this, you have this career, you have a money stuff, you have a nice stay home, you have all these things, so what should be happening? And usually there's lots of these internally. But a person with passive SI, I know I should be happy. I know I have those things. That's why I'm so frustrated with using because I don't feel the way I think I should feel based on what I think I don't know why I can't fix it. I can't fix it. That's hopelessness with passive SI. A person with passive SI is not necessarily less depressed than a person with active SI. Don't mistake passive versus active SI as an indicator of the severity of that person's depression. That is not necessarily how it works. Often what keeps SI in passive range for a person is the presence of a protective factor in that person's life, like religious beliefs or partner or professional responsibilities or children or pets or something coming up in the future. They want concept of convention or something. It doesn't mean that they're suffering any less than a person who is actually in that active SI stage. It just means there's something in their life that's keeping that door shut for the time being. They can experience severe depression. Severe depression and passive SI can't go through in 0%. Another misconception, I think I've been between phrasing the heading these misconceptions are really so sorry, that's confusing, but and this is actually just my opinion. This one really just my opinion. I believe something you should be able to shame about. It's either, as we covered previously, a reaction to extreme stresses of some type, or it's a symptom of cognitive dysfunction, depression, bipolar disorder, or PTSD. Being ashamed of passive anxiety, like being ashamed of your blood sugar if you're diabetic, it's just a thing that's going to happen to you sometimes because it's a condition that you have. Now, we don't be saying that's something to take away, and it doesn't change how society is going to react to you. But remember that you can know how the world's going to see something and react accordingly, but you can have different interpretive, right? So you can know the world's going to judge me, or at least most people in the world will judge me if I use it helpfully. So I'm not going to do that inside to protect myself. But you can internally have to think different narrative and say, I understand this is just a simple thing. You really wish I talked about it, I used to spoke about it, but I don't think people can understand. So I'm going to hold it in, not because it's a shameful thing, but just because I think it's wrong. It also isn't supposed to result in hospitalization. This is really frustrating when I talk about this, but for someone to be involuntarily hospitalized for mental health reasons, which is often referred to in the social media world as a really soft vacation, it is supposed to require active SI, which means you have plan, means, and intent, and do not have a willingness to take a decision. If you disclose passive SI to a medical professional or mental health professional, it should result in hospitalization. My big disclaimer here is I have heard that happen. I don't understand how that happens. Here, I have we have opposite problem. I see people get turned away from the hospital. I think we need to be there. I don't know if this is like a big small type of thing, but I do know that this happens. It should happen, but it does happen. So this conception, I guess, would be that hospitalization is an appropriate response to passive SI. It's not, because that person, if passive doesn't need 20% care, you can tell they're not going to act. They're just struggling. And being able to control the 9% of the last thing. The last misconception I want to clear up is that passive SI is just a state of being that you're going to have to live with the rest of your life. Now, I'd love to sit here and tell you, here's the exact pathway. Here are the action steps to get out of it. We can do that because it's not the same thing for every person. I mean, even something as basic as like a differentiation decision we have talked about before. Is this passive SI due to extreme stress circumstances, or is this passive SI due to some kind of internal barrier preventing you from experiencing the emotions that should belong in your life? Even that, those two groups of people are going to have drastically different action steps forward. So I cannot tell you exactly what you should do. My hope would be that you are able to connect with a skilled therapist who understands passive SI, who understands whether circumstances or conditions are creating passive SI, and can help you create individualized action plans to navigate through that. But I think that it doesn't have to be a thing that's exclusive for the rest of your life, because I'm always experiencing it. So that's my sense on that. Those are the misconceptions I see thrown out way too frequently around passive SI, and my case one. I hope that helps. If you know someone in your life who you want to understand passive SI better, please feel free to share this video with them. Hopefully some explanations can help them better understand. Take care. That's it.
So anxious. Okay, every day more of these to be very I just love the video. I'm so anxious. I'm so nervous right now. So I can have a reward from that. I just ordered some bubble tea. Okay. Now let's go to this video. I've never seen now, which is the infamous video. So the title is "Remember those like little yin yang signs I would put on the side of my video?" Okay, so I did that for years and years and years, and I must say, like a ton of people when they started YouTube music kind of started using that. And I love that. Like I remember someone drawing he was like moon that she would use, but actually I just stopped using it because when I started to rely on YouTube as an income, it is actually not beneficial to have like an emoji at the start. That's your title. You know, it's hard for people to search the title if you have to add an emoji to it. You're not doing YouTube anymore for like making money. And I use YouTube to make money for years and years and years, and we can even talk about that. Like some of the content I'm not very proud of, and I want to check. The videos we're going to be reacting to and like reviewing in the next couple months or so are like the videos I made when I was 17 and I was just lonely and I had no one and I got kicked out of school. So for those who don't know what we're actually doing now, we are reacting to the video I made 10 years ago. It says 9 years ago here. It says 2015 January 19th, so it's just been under 10 years of me talking about my attempts, and we're going to go through it. So title, this emoji that says my suicide attempt, obviously trigger warning to anyone who's watching. It is suicide awareness, suicide prevention month. So this is a very like touchy subject for a lot of people. If you do not feel comfortable to be watching these videos, please click off and wait until you are more comfortable to do so, or just don't watch this video. And it says this is the last upload. So that was my original title, and I don't think I ever deleted it. I kept the title the same.
So basically, sorry, this video is me answering a lot of questions on Ask FM, and I don't feel comfortable answering them one by one because I didn't really like explain the story. So this is basically just me talking about my suicide attempt. I'm not trying to cry or get sappy or anything. So, and I'm gonna try to do this one take because I don't feel like editing. Right. Okay, I first need to mention that it was a really big blur. Like it's still a blur to me because I'll tell you later, but it's a really big blur, so it's hard for me to kind of remember what happened.
Okay, so first of all, how nostalgic is this video for so many of us who were struggling at the time and we watched this video? Like, it's crazy to think that like this video helped the conversation of mental health on YouTube, and I'm not trying to like take credit for any of that stuff. I feel like this video would help a lot of people open up and put their hand up while they're drowning and be like, yo, I'm drowning, I need help. And so what I did mention in this video is that people were asking a lot of questions on Ask FM. Ask FM was like a website back then, like when I was in school, this was like 2015, where people would anonymously ask you questions. So I asked questions like on Anon, and also like just my friends in the beginning were asking me what happened, and it was really hard for me to explain. Like I think in the beginning I was like copying and pasting, but then like summarizing like, oh, this is what happened, like very supporting stuff. And eventually I was like, I just want to film a video and link people to that, because before this video I only filmed like a few videos decorating my room, doing some art. I didn't really do any like vlog style or like sit down and talk to the camera type videos. Did only some other channels that I always wanted to be a YouTuber, but the point of this video was not for like the whole world to see it, which is ironic because it ended up feeling like the whole world saw this video, and I did want to take it down at many points in my life. But the way that people could actually like relate to me, and when you speak about something that makes your voice, makes you stutter, that makes you shake, you're just teaching other people around you that they can also talk about those things. When you talk about, I know I say all these words, but when you talk about self-hurt, when you talk about EDs, you just show other people that they can also talk about it, either to you or other people. This is why you should speak up. Speak up even if your voice shakes, you know, speak up even if your voice shakes. You are just teaching other people that they can talk about it. So like, for example, like I grew up with money issues. My family, like me and my mother, when we were homeless for a portion of our life, like we really struggled. Like the shit I went through, like people can't like comprehend when I told them that I'm in therapy, I'm in psychiatry, I'm in psychologist, all this stuff. I'm good, I'm working on all this stuff. Now being an adult over like 2 years ago, someone started mentioning like, oh, like it's actually like everything else, and like shit's insane, like I'm having to choose between eating cup noodles or having bread or something like that. And that just showed me that like wow, like if I'm struggling financially, I can actually talk about these things because someone else is talking about these things. Like going to another friend told me like, don't tell people that I'm struggling, don't like you ask the neighbors for food, you ask like librarians for food, public people for food, literally going to Subway and ask them for food. And my mom would say like, do not let people know that you're struggling, please do not let people know that like this is what we're going through, because obviously she felt embarrassed, she felt ashamed that like we were in that situation. And I love my
when I told her like I need let me just start off by saying that the past couple months, you know, from October, September, around that time all the way through the end of last year, 2014, I was struggling. Basically I came home from the summer and my parents saw my self-harm cuts and they knew about it from the past, but they really didn't think about it. And I told them I need like professional help because my ex-boyfriend actually told me, and he told me like you need professional help, and I was just like I didn't really give a shit, and I was like yeah, I think I do. So then the next day we checked out my psychiatrist, and that was great. I went to my psychiatrist great, and I was seeing him throughout my school for 5 years and 5 years, and so I was getting as much help as I could possibly get. And after that,
so I don't know why I'm getting emotional, but I do remember this. I spent my summer away in Australia, and I had a really good time, but I was very triggered by my childhood because I hadn't seen my mom in 6 years, and for 2 of those years I was in absolute no contact with my mom. Then I went to go visit her when I was 14, and she kind of like showered me with money and apologized for like through gifts and experiences, and like really spent a lot of money to like make up this excuse that she wasn't there. And like of course I held a lot of resentment with my mother, but I was just so happy to see her. And I think because I was younger than my brother that like I forgave her quicker. Like I just kind of like let her shower me like all this love and stuff like that. When I was 15 going on 16, I went again to visit my mom for the summer, and she took me to Brisbane Gold Coast, which is actually where I live right now. I went on holiday with her, and we were glad together for maybe a month or something, maybe 1 month, and it was such a good holiday. I love my mom so much, but we did have a fight, and it kind of like triggered all of my childhood, like all the things I resented her for. And it was hard because like I think both of us were growing through the trauma that we went through. And my mom was also traumatized during homelessness, like it wasn't just me, obviously I was a child, it's not deserved. We were both triggered, and we had a fight, and I went home to the hotel, and I had like police flash at my body and my legs, and like self-harm. I was still not. And then when I came home to Taiwan, right, at the time when the video was filmed, my parents obviously had seen what I did to myself, and it wasn't the first time. I think the first time they were kind of made aware of it, like I'm sure they did before that, was me and my best friend, we went to a water park with my older sister, and my older sister is 8 years older than me, so she had, she's experienced and like had matured, and me and my friend Lisa were only like, 13 or something at the time, and my sister saw that we both had self-harm, and she told my dad, and my dad, he was like, what are you doing? Like, he called them scratches, which is a little bit mean because they were wounds, they weren't scratches, they were wounds. We're definitely have to do multiple parts. I'm not used to crying like you're ready, but I'm used to crying. I don't even think I'm ready. He was made aware of it, and then he asked me to stop, and I think I told him the truth. I said, I was like, oh, I'll try, you know. But there are so many other forms of self-harm. There is what they saw, which was cutting, but there was also drugs, alcohol, self-sabotage, control eating. So what I'm talking about here is that in the summer that I turned 16, I came home and my dad saw it, and I was just basically like, yeah, I need help, and I need professional help. And I love my father because the next day he took me, the next day he took me to a hospital and took me to see a psychiatrist, and he was just that kind of dad. Like, he was just the most proactive father ever. Like, when we got out of homelessness, my brother and I, and we moved to my dad, the first day he took us to go get our hair cut and to remove all the lice from our hair. The first day. And then my stepmom, who took me in, I love her so much. She took us to the bear and she bought us like some toys. And to me, that's proactive because I'm sorry, my mom promised me toys my whole life that I was never given. So to have my stepmom and my dad saying that I need to build a bear and to take me to build a bear and to build a bear, this is like a change in my life. Like this, we want to be homeless living with my dad in a nice apartment and going into a private international school. I'm pretty sure we arrived on Monday, and by Thursday we were in school, and we had been in school for months and months to the point that like when I got into school, this is just really so much really very much. I didn't know how to write letter R, I didn't know how to write letter K, I didn't know how to write because while we were like homeless and moving around so much, I couldn't go to school. I didn't know how to read well, I didn't know how to write well, I didn't know how to do maths. Like one of the hardest times that I went through education-wise was coming back into the education system. The reason why I couldn't go to school was because we were running away from child protective services. My mom couldn't go to school, otherwise we would have been taken away because of what we were going through. And everyone around us, all my teachers, every person around us knew what we were going through. And if she took us to school, then we would have been taken away. So we were able to go to school. So I arrived, my dad finally got us a flight. He had paid already for 3 flights. We missed 1 flight and cried at the airport. And me and my brother knew that we were going to be stuck being going through what we were going through already. We were in Thailand. That's where my dad and my stepmom lived. That's when we took us to the on the first day, took us to the hair salon, we covered hair this short, and my dad got rid of everything we had, absolutely everything we had. After my dad and my stepmom lived. That's when we took us to the on the first day, took us to the hair salon, we covered hair this short, and my dad got rid of everything we had, absolutely everything we had. I arrived in Thailand with a little bone Dutch handbag at 10, 9 years old that had pads because we didn't have clean underwear, so we had to wear pads. And I had a slime, a cup of slime, and a red stuffed toy. Those were the 2 toys I had, a jar of slime and a red stuffed toy. And I didn't even think we had clothes in the little bag that I had. Imagine, I didn't even have a suitcase. I was living out of a tiny little one Dutch pink handbag that only had pads and 2 toys in it. Like that's what I did. That's like what I had. That's literally all I had. Such a trauma dump, guys. I'm so sorry. Like, I'm just so
Here's where I'm leaving off. See you back soon.